Hello and welcome to PS4 O'clock. My name's Leon Hurley and this week I'm talking to editor Ben Wilson about his hands-on time with PS4. Hello, I am here with Ben, who spent a day last week playing PS4.
Yes, I did.
The thing that you seem to be most excited about was the controller.
Yeah, I think you all think I'm mad for it, but genuinely, I think that from all the generation jumps on PlayStation, PS1, PS2, PS3, PS4, this is the biggest in terms of the controls. I think with the other three consoles, you saw like an evolution of the controller. With this one, the new DualShock, I genuinely think is a revolution. They've made what I call three major changes to it, all of which I really like. The first one is the analog sticks. They're a bit closer together, and they sit slightly higher up the pad. And on top of the analog sticks, you've actually got like a almost flat surface, which really helps when you're playing like I guess like a racer. I played DriveClub, which we'll talk about in a minute, because you know when you're moving left and right quickly, you don't have that feeling that your thumb might slide off at any point.
Yeah.
Secondly, the triggers. There's these new indents in the top of the L2 and R2 buttons, and again, if you're playing a shooter, it just means that there's a bit more snap to them. That you don't feel again the threat of your finger sliding off and making a mistake. And thirdly, the inclusion of the touchpad, I was slightly cynical about initially, because on PS Vita, if you've played any games that mix, like FIFA, that mix touchpad controls and analog controls, it's a real pain to sort of stretch your thumb over the top of the analog stick and try and use the touchpad. With this, because they've moved the sticks inwards and upwards very slightly, when you move your thumbs over to use the touchpad, it feels really natural, doesn't hurt your thumbs, you're not going to get a thumb ache. Those three things collectively I really liked, and I just thought the build quality was an upgrade from the current controller as well.
Okay, and how does it compare size-wise? You're saying it's slightly smaller, but the handles are kind of longer.
I think so, yeah. So the what is the technical name for the handles? I never know.
We've been calling them horns.
Oh, the horns,
horns
yeah.
works for me.
Horny for the horns. Yeah, the horns are slightly longer. The pad itself, myself and James Jarvis did like a sort of comparison video, which I think is going to be on YouTube at some point.
Yes.
If
So
not
you
already.
took along a PS3 pad,
Yeah,
didn't you?
yeah, and it is very, very, very slightly smaller than the PS3 controller, but not by much. But I think that it will, if you're used to holding a PS3 controller, it will feel natural, but it will also feel like the sort of the next step up from what you're used to in a good way.
Okay. You said the rumble. This is something else you mentioned. The rumble has more sort of depth to it, more variation.
Yeah, I mean, we played a game called I don't know what it's called. It's like a suite of mini games called The Playroom, which I think is going to come packaged on every PS4 for free. And one of the things we got to do was we played. I played a lady called Julia Hardy, who's quite a well-known video game journalist, at AR Hockey. And basically, it's like air hockey, but on screen you can move the controller up and down to make the pitch bigger. You can press R3 to bump the ball along. And I beat her 5-4. And after the game, this French developer guy who was showing off the Playroom, he gave me he said hold the pad and tilt it left and right. And on screen, there came out this virtual bottle of champagne. And by tilting the controller left and right, the on-screen champagne would do the same, and I could feel inside the controller it actually felt like liquid. He then insisted I spray that all over Julia's face, which was awkward for both of us and very weird seeing that image on screen. There's a few other double entendres in the whole demo, but we won't go into those. I'm sure people will enjoy discovering those for themselves. But yeah, I found that quite interesting that actually we're using that they've developed the technology that they can mimic things like a liquid inside the controller with the rumble. Very, very clever, and I wonder how other companies will use that kind of sophistication.
Okay, well, so let's focus on the Playroom then. So this is a sort of a tech demo-y kind of toy box that will come pre-installed on every PS4. You'll need a camera to use it, so you can't play it straight away. But it's a kind of a collection of sort of tech demos.
Tech demos, mini games. I mean, like I said, we played like this hockey game, which was quite fun. I don't think you'll be playing it for hours on end, but it's a really good use of the technology. Most of the time we spent there, me and Julie, we had sort of 10 minutes kicking, and I mean literally mean kicking, these like AR robots around. So you start off with the controller in your hand. These robots are inside the controller, so this is represented on the screen. You actually see the sort of controller's inner workings, and you see these robots sort of moving around in there, and by pressing the face buttons, by pressing the triangle button, which is green, you can make a green light come down inside the controller, and then you can do little sequences of triangle, square, circle, and you get what basically a disco light effect.
Yeah.
And these little robots dance about inside the controller. Similarly, by holding the pad up to the light, the top. What do you call the light bar on the top?
It's just called the light bar.
By holding the light bar up facing the sky, you get this effect. It's a bit like the aliens in Toy Story. They all sort of look up and fascinated by this sort of light coming in from above, and then you can by like thrusting the controller forward, you can actually fling these robots out into the world. So you imagine if you played iPad, you imagine this is your living room floor. You fling them onto your living room floor, and then you can sort of kick them about, and you can wave at them and they wave back. If you've got a smartphone, you've got the app. I don't know what the app's called. They didn't really explain that. You can draw things again like iPad and throw them on the screen. I won't tell you what Julia drew, but it was pretty obvious, and we were told off and not allowed to throw it on the screen. But yeah, like it's a really clever use of technology. It's iPad, but a much more sophisticated version of it.
Okay. Now the game you spent most of your time with was DriveClub.
Yeah.
What were your sort of initial thoughts on that?
It is a big shock to the system if you're used to playing MotorStorm. So I played a lot of the first MotorStorm and a lot of Pacific Rift. Not so much the one in between. Pacific Rift the second one? Apocalypse was. Sorry, I didn't play much Pacific Rift. I played a lot of Apocalypse. I loved those games because they're quite arcadey, quite pick up and play.
Very simple to get into.
Exactly.
You don't need to be a racer.
DriveClub is a very serious racing game, and for me, when I first picked it up, I couldn't believe how terrible I was. You can feel it's an Evolution Studios racer. You can feel that it's similar to MotorStorm, but the learning curve is harsher. This is a game being made for serious racers, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good that Evolution are doing something different on the next gen machine. I think it's good that Sony will have something to bridge the gap between GT6 on PS3 and who knows when GT comes out on PS4. I think it's a natural place for them to sit. I was just a little bit shocked at the time at how hard it was.
Yeah. And it does a lot of sort of social stuff. I guess you didn't... Can you sort of explain a bit more?
Yeah, we did a little bit. I mean, it's weird. I say it's a serious race, so there's still a lot of stuff in there that's been quite obviously inspired by the Need for Speed and Burnout games.
There's like a lot of variety of challenges, isn't it? It's not just about races.
Exactly. So I was doing a race, just competing against my own time. But while I was doing that sort of time trial, the other people, there was like a group of about 12 pods in a row, and all the people either side of me were effectively competing against me for things like the fastest time over a 30-second stretch of the track, or like the best like drift score, or like you go around a corner and it would score your drift out of I think 1,000. The same for like a couple of the hairpin bends. And so all while I'm doing this time trial, I'm getting things pop up on screen saying James Jarvis has just beaten you at this drift challenge, or I don't know, PC Gamer 1 2 3 4 5. PC Gamer weren't ready there. I'm just using that as a name. Has lost to you on this time challenge, and it's quite an intriguing way of handling it, because it means that there's the traditional racer element in there, but also if you don't just want to keep driving around a track 3 times, if you want an additional challenge to that, you've got these other things popping up, and I think it's quite a clever way of basically catering for people like me who have really short attention spans. And for me, 9 minutes driving around the track where it's just a race, it seems quite a long time, and actually having that broken up by some little bits and bobs, is I think a sensible idea.
Cool. And you also got eyes on with Infamous, which is one I'm looking forward to. I think what I've seen of it so far looks amazing. I like the last game. What do you think of that?
Infamous Second Son. It's an interesting one. I loved the first game. Again, didn't play much of the second one. I very much like the look of it.
You don't sound convinced.
I buy that. I mean, it looks like a really good game, but I don't think it'll be groundbreaking in the same way that DriveClub is. I think it'll be an extension of what you saw from Infamous on PS3, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But basically, from what I saw of it, a lot of it is, repeated elements in a new landscape. It's Seattle, isn't it? With kind of much improved visuals, and it didn't look bad on PS3. But I think if you're expecting the series to take a massive detour into someone new, then you're not going to get that. You're getting more of the same in a bigger world.
Yeah, I think it's a sort of an enhanced version of Infamous 2, effectively. Yeah. But I think, like you're saying, the visual upgrade, the smoothness of the sort of the screen and the fluidity which he moves through the environment, I think looks lovely. You're not entirely sold on the character, though, are you?
No, I mean, he's got a bit of an annoying name, Delsin Rowe. It's just so, faux trendy, and
he's an artist as well, isn't he?
He's an artist, and
graffiti artist, I think.
And like with Cole, it was always, do you want to make him good or bad? With Delsin Rowe, they're already sort of pushing him to be as being quite smug and I don't know. I don't want to say dislikable, but he reminds me a bit of Sylar in Heroes, where you kind of like. there's something there's something horrid about him, and I can't see any redeeming features in him yet. Yeah. There's a bit at the end of the demo I saw where, in a similar style to what Cole could do in the first couple of games, where you sort of fly up in the air and then come down and plummet into the ground and create a shockwave that destroys everything in like a huge radius. And when he gets to like the sort of the peak of his ascent, he sort of turns the camera and gives this like really annoyingly smug look. It's not smart. It's just like
eating grin, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Sort of eating grin.
Yeah, and it's like when you play a game like that, if you were playing as Cole but you wanted him to be bad, you're still enjoying it.
Yeah.
You still liked him being bad. Whereas with this Delsing Road chap, so far everything I've seen of him, I just think sod off. Come on, man. So that is their big challenge. I think the game will be great, but you've got to make a character that the user can relate to and enjoy. And at the moment that's the thing that's slightly missing for me. We'll see how that turns out.
Okay, so the highlight was the pad, getting your hands on with that and getting a feel for it, and the low light then was Delsin.
I think so, yeah. Put down with Delsin for now, up with the controller. I think people are going to be really surprised at what a step up it is from PS3. And games like DriveClub really demonstrated that well. I think races and shooters are the things where you'll notice it most of all to begin with, and then we'll see where it goes.
Lovely, thank you very much.